Hey, hey there, happy Friday or Saturday, depending on where you are in the world. I am currently in Los Angeles, California, and I just washed my hair with my girlfriend's shampoo soap. It is Wild Search. She only ships in Australia, so we'll see how that dries. It feels pretty good so far. Today I am talking about all of the food packaging that we encounter, when we're out in the wild trying to buy stuff, maybe not ready to make our own food, maybe we want to just buy something pre-made, and the sorts of stuff that we have to encounter, the sort of chemicals that we encounter when we purchase food that is packaged. So that's not just like grown from the ground, and we are not just harvesting these little bushels of kale and plucking avocados and lemons off the tree when we're like, I don't feel like making food, I want to buy food packaged in some packaging. So I'm fresh from the Unwrapped conference. Thanks for all the hearts, I really feel that. I'm fresh from the Unwrapped conference, so I literally have all of this to go through, to read through, and I'm putting together multiple scripts for you guys so that I can translate all this amazing stuff. It was such a cool conference. It was put on by Upstream Solutions and Plastic Exposed, which is a group that's trying to translate all the science that's coming out. There's a lot of people doing research on plastics, on microplastics, on food contamination, on packaging. So it's so exciting and interesting to finally have some, real resources to point to when we're talking about this stuff. I know I get a lot of people constantly being like, can you cite your sources? And it's hard to put links to studies on Instagram. I will be trying to put together better resources for you guys so that you have more to look at as well. So today I'm talking less about plastics and more about paper. So something pretty crazy that I learned last week at the Unwrapped conference is that paper is not safe either, which is really unfortunate because here I was being like, plastic is the devil, avoid it at all costs, use paper instead. Obviously, reusable always is the best. Bring your own cup, bring your own containers so that you don't have to use single-use throwaway items. That's ideal. However, I felt like paper was a safe alternative as we're building our habits to bring our own containers. Turns out there are these things called PFAS, or per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances. How do you spell that? This is how you spell that. I don't know if it's backwards for you guys. And these are highly persistent, mobile, and toxic chemicals. So basically also known as forever chemicals, PFAS. And there are about 4,000 to 5,000 chemicals that fit into this category of substances. And they basically are used to treat paper to serve, display, or package food. They're also used to stain-proof furniture, carpets, and clothing, in firefighting foam, and in many industrial uses. So exposure has been associated with liver damage, harm to the immune system, developmental toxicity, and cancer. So the reason why we find this in our food packaging is that a lot of this stuff is treated so that it's grease resistant and water resistant. So that's why they put it, this is a classic takeaway container that we think is healthy for the environment. It's got the chasing arrow sign, which now we know not to believe or trust, which is so upsetting. It's such a bummer. But this says Bio plus Earth number 3, made in North America from US and Canadian materials. It's a green product, certified. Who's certifying this as green? So this layer here is plastic. It's a thin little coating of plastic here to prevent the box from leaking. That's the purpose it serves. It works really well. It makes us feel like, yay, we're being green because we're using paper. not only is this paper probably treated with PFAS here and other chemicals to make it function better for holding food and transporting food as a takeaway container, it also says that this particular box is made from 100% recycled paper, 90% post-consumer content. So this, and it even says this, okay, first of all, it's made from recycled paper. So now why this is of concern to us is, and this is also true for recycled plastic, and look, this is recycled paper too. So the problem with this is that a lot of paper that gets recycled has all sorts of inks on it and other PFAS or substances or chemicals treating the paper to serve its function, to be more durable out in the world. And we also have inks on these and dyes that sometimes contain heavy metals and contain other chemicals that have not been tested for their effect on human health or environmental health. So when we just recycle all this paper, if you look in your recycling bin, no one's like sorting out the contaminated paper or the paper that maybe got soaked with some sketchy substance, or maybe it's all kind of thrown in there together, which generally contaminates the entire recycling bin regardless of the material, but especially for paper. So yeah, like, newspaper, there's so much ink in this. Like, is this really healthy to put food in? So that's kind of the problem with recycling paper for food products, is that it's it's not being tested if it's food safe once it becomes a little food package. Same with recycled plastic. Plastic often holds, our cleaning products hold really intense toxic chemicals. A lot of the car oils and different, big plastic containers that you find in your garage, those are great plastics for recycling because they're hard and bright colored, generally one color, and they can separate those easily based on color. And however, those chemicals that they're containing leach into the plastic, and the plastic leach into that content. So this kind of toxic exchange of substances. And so then when that plastics get recycled with, say, other things that maybe are safer, that you wouldn't be as worried about. I'm looking around for something plastic to use an example, but I don't know. Then a clean plastic that was only used as packaging around a printer, or maybe a printer or something. Those things even have additives in them, right? They even have chemicals that have been added to give them the color and the texture and all these different things. So mixing all these kinds of plastics together isn't giving us this pure, amazing material that we want to use for any number of applications. It kind of limits us in what we can use that material for. Super interesting. Okay, back to the box. So then it also says recyclable only in the few communities that accept poly-lined food service packaging. So this should have been the first thing that we look at to say, oh, I'm sorry, I don't, I asked, hey, what kind of takeaway packaging do you have? They said paper. I was like, great, bring it on. But I should have asked, is it poly-lined? Is it plastic-lined? So they even say that on the bottom, which is great. And it says only recyclable in communities that accept poly-lined food service packaging, which is probably not a lot of communities. So this is kind of the shortcomings of the recycling industry, right? It's everyone is it's recyclable, but not every place is recycling these materials. So that's really interesting. I see that Leo just joined. Hey, Leo. Leo was also at the Unwrapped conference. He's the author of this book. Definitely check it out. Leo Trisande is his Instagram. If you want to learn more about the hormone disrupting chemicals that we're exposed to from all of this, from our plastic packaging and different things. Anyways, back to this. So recycling has never worked. Recycling was actually invented by the plastics industry as a way to kind of make us feel better about the amount of plastic we use and just throwing it away. But it's never really worked for us. Okay, so as much as I'd love to continue to recommend paper products, it's actually kind of a great awakening for me as well, because single use is single use. Throw away is not the way of the future. We don't want to just replace these materials with another material that's a little bit better than plastic. This is not solving the issue of our full landfills. It's not solving the issue of our ocean pollution problems. We just need to do better, and what we really need is system redesign. So we need better takeout containers would be us bringing our own reusable containers. So instead of single-use plastics, instead of single-use paper, instead of single-use containers, we just need these reusable stainless steel containers. And so that's kind of been the consensus at the Unwrapped conference, was less single-use, more reusable. And so definitely need to consider the just transition to that. How do we support businesses that, their business is built on takeaway food? How do we support employees? How do we support people's desire for quick and easy food? There's not a clear path from current Uber Eats to adopting these stainless steel containers at all places that are maybe you pay to be a part of a reusable stainless steel container group, and all these restaurants participate in that model, and you can go attend, you can order takeout from these places and you can return them anywhere. We see this in LA. We see with a lot of the juice bottles. So a lot of juice bottles you can return for your deposit, get $1 back or whatever. There's also other things in the works around reusing cups. There's programs in place that are doing things like this, so that we could definitely model around food. So that's why it's exciting to chat with these scientists and just hear their perspective. There's not a great alternative to plastic. There's not a great replacement for, single-use items. The best option is reuse. Okay, so what else? There's also things like this. This is like a bread bag. It looks like it's paper coated in wax. Which is, that's pretty legit. This will probably break down eventually, quite naturally. It says carry out double wax packaging. So that's pretty legit. I'd way prefer wax on my food than this questionable plastic, unknown chemicals in here. Just keeping it real simple and basic, like a paper bag coated with wax. I think that's kind of the rule of thumb here in terms of our consumption and buying things. The simpler, the better. The simpler, the safer. The less is more here for sure. Okay, so what else did I find in the trash? Okay, so here's like a classic takeaway where it's like, ooh, this is healthy. Paper, and you always have to get the sticker on it so they know what you ordered. This is paper, adhesive, and plastic. That's what most stickers are. We find a lot of BPA or bisphenols, the replacements to BPA, on receipts and things like this, because that's how they print. The paper is like super absorbent to the ink if it's lined with a plastic. Yeah, exactly. Brido 64 Tribe. Ask for minimum packaging if you don't bring your own. So like if I were to go get something like this, I would be like, oh, can I just have no lid? So then I'm reducing the amount of plastic I use. This is PET. Generally considered like the safest plastic. It's what like a lot of the like Coke bottles and things like that are made of. But still leaches chemicals into what it contains. So it might not leach phthalates like a lot of other plastics that have phthalates added to plasticize the material. But it even says remove lid before microwaving. So just remove lid from your life in general, I think. This thing is probably, looks like potentially made from recycled paper. There's like little flecks in there. So we're not sure what was recycled with it. It's probably lined with something to prevent it from getting soggy and contaminated with all the food that it contains. And then these little sauce containers, this is PET, the top, and then the bottom is polypropylene, which is really interesting. Yeah, I mean, they look so similar, you know, it'd be really tough to just imagine that these were different plastics. And these are both going to leach different chemicals. It's just so crazy. Paige just asked, do plastics have to be heated to leach into our food? No. My kind of rule of thumb is that plastics leach in 3 instances. So heat is one of them. That's like the easiest way for plastics to leach. So if you're drinking a coffee out of a plastic lined cup, so again, all of our coffee cups kind of look like this, right? They don't get soggy and leak. So they're lined with plastic. That's what helps them serve their purpose of keeping your cup keeping your coffee contained. If your coffee's hot, then the plastic in the lining is going to leach into your coffee. Same as if you're drinking out of a plastic lid, your coffee, you know, is leaching into your drink. Brandon, I don't know, maybe you need to turn up your volume. Okay, so plastic leaches when you have heat, a hot substance. So either you put a hot substance into plastic, or you're in a hot environment. Like if you bring a plastic water bottle into hot yoga, or you're like in the tropics or something, like all your plastic contained food is contaminated by the plastic container. The second instance is fat. So these chemicals are lipophilic. They're attracted to fat, so they will generally meander from the packaging into whatever it's containing. So if your food in this container is like oily, or maybe your latte in your paper cup that's lined with plastic is, you know, has milk in it, it's a latte, so it does, even if it's dairy or nut milk, whatever, the plastic's going to leach into the latte. So that's really interesting. Same as with like your face creams and other products that we use for beauty. If there's like fat content in your beauty products, this is going to leach into your beauty products. The plastic chemicals are going to leach into your beauty products, and then this is going to you put them all over your face, and then you're kind of like dosing yourself with those chemicals, which are estrogen mimicking and have all this crazy impacts on our bodies, on our reproductive systems, on our DNA, on our offspring, on our environment, of course, as well. So that's the second case from which chemicals leach from plastics into their contents. The third case is duration. So it's just like sitting in plastic for a long time. So like all the things in your kitchen that are packaged in plastic, not only are the chemicals leaching over time, it's just like been in there for so long, it's just like slowly transferring. Something that I learned last week at the Unwrapped conference is that the more you kind of like move these things, the more they shed micro and nano plastics. So if you can imagine like a big block of styrofoam, and like you put your hand against it and you rub it, and imagine like all the flakes that would come off. That's exactly what's happening with these plastics, is that the more you kind of like squeeze, like the more friction that it endures, the more it's going to flake off these little micro bits, which is so interesting because we ingest about a credit card a week of plastics, of microplastics, and this is the kind of thing that is kind of shocking to imagine, you know, like that we're eating this amount a week. But when you think about this thing is like flaking off all these little bits of microplastics and nanoplastics, it's literally in the air, it's in the dust. It's in our food, it's in our everything. It's on my sweater, it's in my hair. So it's like we're taking them in by breathing, eating, drinking, all this stuff. So if the more food that is packaged in plastic, the more stuff that's packaged in plastic, the more contaminated you are, the more that you're exposed to these little micro bits. And yes, that was so interesting. And I also, my slip up I said just a minute ago, confusing microplastics with chemicals is a really important distinction. I think it's really super interesting because microplastics are kind of easier for us to understand, right? Like conceptually, we can be like, oh, tiny little bits of plastic in my water bottle are easier for us to kind of grasp than like the chemicals that are in the plastic packaging are leaching into whatever it's containing. You know, like the plastic is leaching into the salsa. Like it's just a little bit trickier for our brains to conceptualize. So that's why talking about microplastics and like the credit card, even though, you know, some people are like, well, that's an average, not everybody's exposed to so much plastic, totally. But it's like a good way, a good framework for us to kind of like see and think about this issue. And the micro bits of plastic, you know, whatever our plastics are shedding are just the tip of the iceberg. It's, you know, all the other chemicals like the PFAS, these toxins that I was mentioning at the beginning of our live, that are in paper, that are in even compostable plastics, you know, that are in all sorts of different food packaging, to give them to help them function as a yeah, please ask questions, go ahead, to help them function as a good packaging to protect our food. You know, this is from the seller of the food. They're trying to preserve their product for you so that you can eat it a day or 2 or 3 later. And so they want the container to be grease resistant or liquid resistant. They want it to last. You know, so they're not necessarily thinking about what the packaging is made of. They think because, you know, it's bio that it's safe. So it's not like they're not evil. You know, everyone's doing our best out here. We're all just doing our best. And that's why I'm sharing this, is because knowledge is really empowering. And we can help teach, you know, we have to help teach each other and share this information. So like, you know, the health food stores and the pizza shops and stuff that are doing this think they're doing the right thing. And like, in a way, you know, this is better than plastic. Maybe. Is it better for our health? Unknown. You know, we used to think so last week, we being me. So that's really interesting. So the moral of the story is to protect yourself from these toxins that we're unsure about their impacts, is to bring your own container. To protect yourself from the microplastics that are in drinking water, tap is better than bottled water. Again, as I said, the more you move the plastic, the more microplastics shed off. So plastic water bottle is more susceptible to the microplastics, but also the chemicals that are leaching into the water. So tap is a better option. Get yourself a charcoal filter. That's going to help filter out any harmful chemicals. Let me just take a sip. So good. I needed that. Yeah, I would say bringing your own. I always carry a little spoon in my purse so that I don't have to use things like this. This is 100% compostable, but start looking at all the labels. I don't think you can see that. Start looking at your packaging and asking questions. Most of the employees probably won't know, but the more we ask, the more they'll have to report back to their managers and be like, gosh, everybody's been asking about these spoons. The question about compostable is where is the nearest commercial compost facility? Because all of these PFAS make these things to contaminate most composts. So even though it says it's compostable, it has to be in a highly monitored environment. You know, the microbes monitored, the heat monitored, the aeration monitored, constantly turned, and most commercial composting sites in the world cannot manage something like this. I mean, it's so hard. It's so similar to plastic. This material isn't easy to break down, so it requires this like industrial compost, which are rare. I've never actually even been to one. So yeah, bringing your own little spoon so you don't have to use things like this. You know, if you do end up using containers, ask about them, use them as show and tell projects, talk about them, but try and bring your own. Like I try to bring my own coffee cup, and usually it can serve more purposes than one. If I could put a little soup in here or a salad to avoid using this sort of stuff. And this is just going to keep me safe and the planet safe, especially when we know that recycling doesn't work and there aren't commercial compost to receive all this stuff, all this packaging. Okay, so let's do some questions. Let's see, what have we got? We're swimming in microplastics everywhere. It feels helpless. Totally. And that's why we need to talk about it more so that we can come up with the solutions, because the more we talk about it, the more we share this information, the more innovation is going to be driven forward, the more redesign, the more systems restructuring, and we can phase plastics out of our life and introduce more natural materials, creating like a reusable system that works for everyone, that works within our society, this society that is continuously getting more and more delivery based. Like being in LA, it's shocking to see how much people rely on delivery. So how can we work with this system that everyone finds so convenient and awesome to support our health, not just our environment, but our bodies as well? And I think talking about the microplastics that we're swimming in really helps people be like, fuck, we need to do better. I have faith we are intelligent enough to turn it around. The power of the people, not the elite. They interested. Well, that's kind of where like the health aspect is important, right? Like we're all affected by plastics. Like this box is from a really expensive health food store in LA, and privileged people, the elite, are buying this stuff. So if we can tell them, hey guys, like you're eating just as much microplastics and just as many chemicals as everybody else, hopefully that can influence the market and drive change. What best container do you use, steel or glass? I use both steel and glass. Like if I don't have access to my preferred stainless steel tiffin, which is kind of like a bento box. If you search tiffin, you can find them. They're very common in India. It's dirty right now, otherwise I would show you. But this is like how it fits. This is its little handle and how I carry it. You can imagine there's a stainless steel container in here with a lid. It's my favorite. Great portion control too. Like it's kind of small. It's like that big. Let's see, if I don't have that, I use a glass jar with a metal lid. So like repurpose a pickle jar. That's the best, I think. And then if you're worried about breaking it, just wrap it in like a sock or something. Lizzie says, I've just cleaned out an old compost bin. The soil was full of plastic sheets that were inside paper cups. Wow, that's fascinating. I would love to see a photo of that. If you have images, please direct message them to me or email me at hello@iquitplastics.com. That would be so interesting to see. Thanks for sharing, Lizzie. Paige. Hey, Paige. So good to hear from you. When I denied all plastics on a flight, the flight attendant looked shocked, but then smiled and said, actually, people are bringing their own keep cups and cutlery. That's so rad. That makes me so excited. So, like, that's the thing. We're, like, building a movement. We're normalizing bringing our own stuff. Like, today, I brought a mug on a ribbon. Like I was on a walk and I was gonna meet a friend for coffee, and I learned that they only do coffees to go. So I had to bring my own cup, but I was like, I don't want to carry it. So I made a little leash for the cup, and I just brought it with me on that ribbon. So the more weird stuff we can do, the more we're normalizing this for everyone else. Like I purposely go to the deli at this place like almost every day because it's delicious. And also I want to normalize bringing my own container, and it's a pain in the fucking ass for everybody. Like everyone's like, I don't know how to do this, and I always have to explain how to do it, and it takes way longer for me, but I'm like willing to put in the work at this place because it's a health store and they need to be on top of it. And hopefully eventually I can meet with a manager and be like, hey, this is why I do this. PFAS, baby, and just like give them the info. Maybe I could even bring a copy of this. This report, by the way, is done by Safer Chemicals Healthy Families. And let's see where you can find it. I think you can find this information on their website. Wow, they don't have contact info on here. That's too bad. But they tested 78 samples of food packaging collected from 20 stores in 12 states. And they found PFAS treatment in 10 of the 78 samples of food contact materials. The most common items treated with PFAS were takeout containers and bakery or deli papers. So interesting. Okay, so what's this next question? China really turned away our recyclables because we are unable to meet their higher standards. Yeah, that's the case with plastics. They just sent like really strict standards for plastics, and we can't meet them at all because our recycling bins are like a pile of just disgusting. It's so contaminated and sticky and gross. All different kinds of materials. Who's going to sort through that? It's literally cheaper to just use virgin plastics. And paper, you can't recycle it if it's been like contaminated. So like pizza boxes, if they're covered in grease, aren't recyclable. But China is still accepting our paper. I agree. Yay, Whole Foods is bad about the use of plastics. I know, a lot of these like health stores are, but actually Whole Foods was one of the ones tested, and they had the highest rating of PFAS in their takeaway containers. So I think that's going to move them to take some action. Whole Foods is right here. I don't know if you can see that. Feel free to screenshot if this is interesting to you. So yeah, okay, more. Thank you, Lizzie, for sending me. Cool. So yeah, that's kind of it for me today. I just really wanted to touch on the learnings about paper products and how it's not the safe option like I kind of originally thought, which is right. You know, like we need our trees, we need our forests to sequester carbon. Our atmosphere is so tapped full of carbon, and trees draw that shit down and they eat it, which is so beautiful and amazing through photosynthesis. I'm super into carbon sequestration at the moment. So we need our forests, and so we shouldn't be just like replacing plastic with paper, even if it's recycled paper. Like I love that concept, but the amount that we use thinking we're recycling doesn't justify the original use. And that's the case with so much of our packaging. So, yeah, I hope this is helpful. You know, bringing our own containers. This whole thing is just to inspire you to bring your own containers, bring your own cup, bring your own whatever. And if you forget or you end up in a situation where you don't have your own container, go without. Get creative, see what they have back there, like be like, hey, I'm trying to pay you for your stuff. I really, you know, be polite and loving and like compassionate with the people behind the counter, because they're just like, fuck this shit, you know, like sometimes struggling with their work or their job, you know, they're just at work. So we really want to like create positive associations with all of this stuff for our own selves as well as for others, as we try to like normalize the bring your own, as we try to normalize the reusable behavior out there in the world. We don't want to be like, the turtles are dying, like help me, you know, or like, did you know that all of your packaging is leaching chemicals and microplastics and it's causing us all to lose fertility and blah, blah, blah. Like maybe the employee at the gelato place is like not the person for the speech. If they're open to it and they're like, oh, I've been hearing about this, like that's like a green light, right? Like now is your time. But we don't want to like force this stuff on people. It's just like lead, be graceful and humble and loving and just, yeah, come from a place of love. That's what I mean by loving. And just lead by example is, I think, the best advice in this stuff, because it's really hard and a lot of people struggle with this issue, right? And sometimes people are like so overwhelmed, like we're drowning in the microplastics. It's like, yeah, but this is a solution. It's so easy. Just bring your own cup, you know? It's like, oh, you're overwhelmed? Here you go. Just tie a ribbon around it and sling it over your shoulder, you know? It's like, make it fun, make it funny. Like, let's laugh about this stuff, because then we're creating positive associations. Then people are like, this is fun, you know? Otherwise, it's really depressing, because we're like, oh, we're eating a credit card a week of plastic. But yeah, so the more we can make this fun, and then once you're like, hey, I try not to use plastics. Do you guys have a reusable container back there? Like, I'd love to just eat here and hang out here. But I forgot to bring a thing, or I didn't realize you didn't do things in bowls and you don't have your own cutlery. Like, I really want to eat here and pay you guys though. Like, do you have anything back there? And they'll be like, oh, dang. Yeah, actually, like, I have my own container. Like, do you want to borrow this? And it's like, yeah, thanks, you know, blah, blah, blah. Or like, no, we don't, but we could reuse this if you want, whatever, you know, get creative, work with the people, See, like, you're here, you're listening, so you care. So we get to be the ones that take a little bit more time, have these conversations, we're on the fringe, right? But all cool stuff happens on the fringe before it becomes mainstream. So we're going to take that time to make the effort to talk about these things, and eventually it'll be normal. Like even having stuff like this is huge change, right? Like it's good that there's paper out there. Stuff is changing. We just need to help guide the change to be less. First, we need more regulation. Like the FDA is fucking blowing it. Like they're not regulating this stuff, which is why we need to share this information that I'm talking about, the PFAS stuff, so that single use is not the go-to option. If you care about your health, if you care about the planet, bring your own. So that's kind of the message. I'm just going to go through these to see if there's any other questions. And then we can wrap it up. Lots of thanks and like beautiful vibes. Thank you so much. Oh, toothpaste tubes. I was in Indonesia last year and I found a beautiful woman sitting in the jungle with a pile of toothpaste tubes. They have nowhere to go. No one recycles these. It's that kind of multi-layer material that is just not recyclable. I'm going to try and find an example of this for you guys so you understand. Let's see. Bear with me. Still here. Let's see. Okay, can't find one. But basically it's like something that is paper, and then it's like a Tetra Pak, right? So Tetra Paks are designed to hold a product oftentimes on a shelf, not necessarily in the fridge, for a long period of time. So the outside looks like paper. The top has like a plastic lid. Maybe it looks like paper. There's a shiny coating, so that's plastic. Then it has a layer of aluminum or some sort of metal, and then plastic. So the very inner layer is plastic. So that's like multi-layer material. No one's going to separate this stuff out. No one's going to sit there and like peel apart the layers, right? Like imagine me trying to separate the plastic from this paper. No way. It's like Lizzie, who has the cups composting in her compost. How else would she have separated the plastic out from those cups except for putting them in her compost and letting the worms and microbes eat away at the paper over years, and then she's left with that plastic liner? There's no like, so basically Tetra Paks, they say recyclable on the bottom, like fucking everything. Liars. They say recyclable, but they don't actually get recycled. If they do, the process of recycling Tetra Paks is putting them in water, softening it all up so that the paper separates out eventually, and it's like this pulp, this paper pulp, and then that might be recycled. The rest is thrown away, like it's useless. So that's not great. With toothpaste, it's even trickier because it's much smaller and condensed and sticky, and so it doesn't. There's nothing really of value in that. It's mostly plastic and aluminum, and so they end up in the dump. They just get thrown away. So yeah, please create a solution to that, or I make my own. So you just get a glass jar with a metal lid, and you can use salt as a great toothpaste, bicarb, clay, mix it with coconut oil. There you go. Simple. Okay, let's see. Someone is responsible for ideological pollution. Someone should hold these people accountable, since the well-being of purity is a vital drinking source. Yeah, it's really frustrating that the Food and Drug Administration isn't banning more chemicals, isn't regulating chemicals, isn't enforcing bans. We can look to Europe to kind of like, if you're worried about chemicals, definitely look to see what's banned in Europe. Way more stuff is banned in Europe. I mean, even just looking at cosmetics is kind of like a good starting point, because I think there's like 30 chemicals banned in the US and like thousands in Europe. So we're just not as protected here. So we have to take things into our own hands and be sovereign beings and protect ourselves, which is great. We should do that. We don't want to be sheep. We don't want to just be like these consumers that just buy everything because we recognize the brand name or they have some flashy marketing that gets us. Okay, what else? Seaweed. What about seaweed? I love seaweed. Thank you for the love. Celebrities are no greater than the average person, except the average person is more likely to affect real issues we all face. Is more likely to affect real issues. Yeah, I think celebrities have a voice and can use their platform for good. Like Jason Momoa, what a legend! Just like living up to Aquaman expectations and just taking his journey. Like we can watch him learning about this issue from his page, right? He's like, wait, plastic doesn't biodegrade, fuck plastic, metal cans, yeah, water and metal cans. And then he's just like doing all these like great videos about his awareness as he kind of like awakens to plastic. It's great. It's great. There's talk of companies paying 100% of recycling costs as an incentive to get them to wake up. I mean, that would be fucking great, right? Excuse my language. I like to swear around these issues. Yeah, I mean, like there's a lot of places that do extended producer responsibility where the people are actually responsible for the full cycle of their product, of what they're putting out there. That would be really great. I think with the brand audits that a lot of Break Free from Plastic members are doing, we can get more information on the companies that are responsible for pollution, and we can call them out and say, hey, you need to answer for all of this trash that you're contributing to. So I definitely think that's what's happening. But it's slow. So the more we can vote with our dollar and avoid those things, the better. But again, this is a classist issue, right? Like we're privileged being able to make all these buying choices. Most of the plastics that are polluting Southeast Asia and other parts of the world are because people can't afford, like that's what's in their price bracket. That's what they can afford. That's what's available to them. The plastic packaged foods are cheaper than, say, like shopping at the farmer's market or buying bulk. It doesn't mean that those people care less about the environment or care less about the toxins that they're exposed to or care less about microplastics in their body. Not at all. They care just the same. It's just that they don't have as many options. So what's our responsibility? Being active, voting, lobbying for change, getting our community together, talking to the manager, trying to influence the market to drive the price down for these reusable items. Trying to make it more accessible. Definitely that talking about this stuff too, sharing this information so that we can put pressure on the corporations, and getting politicians that really enforce these the regulations on chemicals. Okay. I'm just gonna go through a few more questions. Make it cool. That's right. Instead of toothpaste tubes, I make my own. So again, you can look up those recipes on my YouTube, Plastic Free Mermaid. Such a crazy image. I am blonde. This is my natural stuff. I do like to, I'm experimenting with like turmeric hair dye and other hair dye, which is fun. Let's see, toothy tabs from Lush. That's great. More DIYs in the channel. Got it. Can you save this live? Yeah, I'll save this and put it on YouTube. Yay. Oh, change your life. Thanks. Your job wastes so much. Okay, this is a great opportunity to like rally your coworkers and people in your community, your peers, and be like, hey, do you guys hate this? And if they're like, no, we don't care, it's like, okay, what's my angle for helping them care? Get some research, do some, like, how is it going to affect them? How is it going to affect their family? How is it going to affect their health? How is it going to affect their energy levels? It's going to affect their body weight. It's going to affect their reproductivity. It's going to affect, them in many ways. So figure out what might resonate with these individuals and like maybe, talk to them individually, maybe bring reusable cups to your work in the kitchen. And if there's like plastic takeaway containers, just like start to slowly replace them. These are like $1 from an op shop, get 10 and make a deal, $5 for 10, whatever. So like the more we can like be that positive influence in our community, not again forcing people and being like, nobody cares, I'm here alone, this is fucked. But instead being like, hey, everybody, I brought reusable cups. Or like, hey, do you guys want to have a happy hour picnic? I made a totally plastic-free picnic. And everyone's like, oh my God, yum, I love this pesto. How'd you make it? And you're like, this is why I made it. And then you're like, the toxins, you know? So it's like, find a way to relate to the people that you're trying to convince. And if it's at your job, you know, create a little team. So you've got a community, you've got people, you've got support. You're not the only sole warrior, and you've got support. And then be like, hey, what should, you know, once you find a few allies, people are going to be like, oh my God, I had fucking no idea. This is crazy. I care now. And you're like, great. Thank you. Thank God. So now you've got an ally, and you can be like, okay, let's research some alternatives for our workplace. And what could we use instead of all the plastic, whatever, you know, and start to look into it. And if there's no replacement, that's an opportunity. Go to a university, go to some inventors, you know, go to some designers, some innovators in this space and be like, hey, here's an opportunity. We don't have something. This is why this time is so exciting. Like, it's not like, no, we're going to die. It's like, oh my God, how can we human our way out of this human-caused disaster? You know, like this is where humans get to shine and work together and innovate. And like, this is where our creativity is going to be so incredible. I mean, I'm excited. Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm going to try and dye my hair with beads, probs this week. Okay, thank you so much for all of your love and the hearts and the support. I'm so grateful to you guys. Thank you for listening. And, yeah, I can't tell you how grateful and honored I am to be able to share this information. This is like so important to me, and it makes me feel so good that it's important to you too. So thank you for being here, for participating, and yeah, I'll try to do way more of these because it's really fun. All right, have a great weekend. Be sure to share this information. I'll put this video on my YouTube channel. That's Plastic Free Mermaid. Definitely subscribe. I'm going to be translating a ton of the science from the Unwrapped conference. I interviewed Leo Trisande, this amazing human that wrote this. So that'll be fun for you guys to watch, and a bunch of other scientists. So have a great weekend. There we go.